Welcome everybody to another episode of the Dolphins Brawl as part of the Brawl Network. I am Louis Sung and my co-host here is Chad Ronenbaum. Always good to be here to talk some more Dolphins football or other teams' football who is directly related to the Dolphins, but we'll get a little later into that. So good evening, my friend Chad. How are you this evening?
Doing good, Louis. Doing real good after the playoffs outcome this weekend.
Yeah,
doing good. Ready for the new year.
Oh, yeah. There's already plenty to talk about. Like, as soon as we wrapped up our other show, a whole bunch of other stuff happened with the Dolphins. Some good, some confusing, some bad. So we're going to get into as much of it as we can. So we'll just go ahead and jump right into it. Based on chronological order, I guess the first thing that we're going to have to talk about is the not so good. Okay, so let's just jump right into it. So right after the victory against the New England Patriots in Foxborough, we finished celebrating. We were happy. We were cheering. We were incredibly pleased that the Patriots would have to go into the wild card round, and we know what happened with that. We'll get into that later. But not even 24 hours later, we get a report that says our star player, who has been on IR for most of the year, Xavien Howard, got arrested on domestic violence charges. Yeah. So there wasn't it was one of those Dolphins fans can't have nice things moments where you get something great happen and then you have to balance it out like the forces of karma thing. You can't have one good thing without something bad to balance it out. But so Howard got arrested for domestic violence charges. The police report came out that he basically got into a heated argument with his fiancée and over a purse, I believe it was, and he pushed her against the wall, grabbed her wrist, and then he let her go, and she tripped and fell on his crutches, and that was why she was all scratched up. At least that's my understanding of what the police report said. So from what knowledge we know of the situation, no actual blow was struck. So I don't know how to really equate everything that happened here, but as far as we know, Howard has been released on bail, and the Miami Dolphins have not released Howard, and they have not made the decision quite as swiftly as they did with the Mark Walton situation, where Walton was found guilty of repeatedly punching the mother of his child in the face. So, I mean, I don't know how to equate this, and I'm going to go ahead and leave it to you, Chad. What are your thoughts on this whole situation?
Well, I mean, obviously nobody's going to know the circumstances. I heard what you heard, Louis, that he didn't actually hit his fiancée, but obviously it was egregious enough that she called the police on him. So I would say it wasn't purely an accident either. There obviously was a conflict there. I'm assuming that at some point, Xavien Howard will have to meet with the NFL, and they're going to review what happened, and then they'll decide what kind of punishment will come down. I would anticipate almost surely he'll get some kind of suspension because the NFL is pretty no tolerant when it comes to domestic violence. So if the reports are true that he was holding onto her wrist and let go and then she fell, I would anticipate the NFL will go a minimum of 2 games, but that's just nothing but speculation on my part. That to me isn't is interesting though. The dynamic is his contract, because what I've been hearing, I obviously haven't seen Xavien Howard's contract, but what I'm hearing is if he ends up getting suspended for domestic violence, his guaranteed money voids in his contract. That's significant. And what I don't know also is if that means it only voids if they cut him, or if it means he just loses his guarantee. Because for the Dolphins, it changes a lot of dynamics. If he loses his guaranteed money, that means they can cut him at any time without owing him any additional money than what they've already paid him. So in terms of a dead cap hit, it would only be what they paid him bonused up front, spread over the life of the contract. So what that means for the Dolphins from the personnel standpoint is if Xavien Howard gets suspended, Miami will probably be in a position where they can move on from him if they so choose to, without having a huge cap hit as a penalty for that. So the Miami Dolphins are going to have to also, which I'm sure, I'm assuming Flores or Chris Greer, they've already talked to Xavien Howard and they know a lot more specifics than what we know. But that's kind of where it plays out. From a standpoint for Xavien Howard, it couldn't be a worse scenario for him, because if he loses his guaranteed money and he's coming off a knee injury, you would hope teams wouldn't think like that. That if they released him, it would be over what he had done in the domestic dispute. But the reality is, if he gets suspended, Miami could choose just to part ways with him because they feel he hasn't been healthy enough for what he's being paid. He's now in that situation, because I would be pretty surprised if he doesn't get a suspension for this from the NFL. I don't think I don't want to put him in the same category as Mark Walton. I think Mark Walton's done a lot worse stuff than anything we've seen reported on Xavien Howard, or absolutely nothing like Ray Rice or something like that, where it was just unbelievably, savage and wrong. But not that Xavien Howard did isn't wrong either, but being it as his first offense, I can understand, they may want to take their time, get all the specifics of what happened, and go from there. But at the very, very least, Xavien Howard is now in an absolute no-tolerant situation now, that if he's even reported, in some kind of dispute out at a nightclub, he'll be gone. There is no more leeway for Xavien Howard now after getting that report on him, is what I would say.
You make good points. The thing for it with me, Chad, is that you touched on it a little bit. What Howard is reported as doing is not as drastic as Mark Walton or even Ray Rice or anybody like that, who immediately got nailed hard by the NFL, their teams, and they got everything that was coming to them. Believe me, I do not think that it is okay for any man to put their hands on a woman. Doesn't matter what the situation is. If you have to, run the other way. Honestly, that's the better option for you. But we have to, the people who say that they are advocating for Xavien Howard, I would not put myself in that category, but I am of the mindset that we have to judge Howard based on what he did, not what he could have done. He could have done a lot worse. He might have done a lot worse. For all we know, he stopped himself, caught himself, and realized, what am I doing? I need to stop right before I get myself into real trouble. That's thinking of it in a very positive light, obviously, because that's thinking that, oh, well, he realized what he was doing and he stopped himself, because people do dumb things all the time. They do. And what Howard did is very dumb, and he deserves to be punished. But based on what the report says, and this is the other thing about it, because the police report said that the police report did not say he hit her. So that would mean that she did not say he hit her, because the report would have said if she said that he had hit her, right? So if she was looking to really get him into trouble, then probably she should have just said he hit her, and that would have been the end of his career right there. They're not going to believe her. There's no surveillance cameras or anything like that to advocate either way, so they would believe her. But she didn't say that he hit her. I don't know. It's a very, very slippery slope, and that's why I'm hesitant to really discuss it. Based on the report itself, I don't think Howard deserves to be released. I don't think Howard deserves to be ostracized. I'm sure the NFL will suspend him to some extent. There's no way they can just let this slide. They're going to have to punish him with something. And I'm sure that the Dolphins are going to find a way to punish him too. But cut, released, I don't know. I don't think so, honestly. And it's not just because Howard's a superstar player when he's healthy and he's the best guy on the team. we have to be willing to look at things from a perspective of what did he do, not what he could have done. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I'll go ahead and let you take the floor from here.
All right. Well, in terms of the generalization of the NFL, I mean, Tyreek Hill's playing right now for the Chiefs this coming weekend, and he broke his son's arm. And I mean, we don't know the specifics of that. And he's also, I believe, he punched his pregnant girlfriend when he was in college. So, I mean, those things to me are way beyond, holding on to somebody's wrist and letting go.
And in that case, I would say Tyreek Hill deserved a bigger punishment than he got.
I feel he shouldn't be allowed to play he should have never been allowed to play in the NFL based on what he did. Punching a pregnant woman is, I mean, that to me is you've lost the privilege of playing in the NFL altogether. But that's a different topic. The Xavien Howard, I think the punishment. I'm definitely not advocating that this was no big deal. He absolutely deserves punishment. And to me, he deserves to be suspended, and he deserves to lose the guaranteed money on his contract, because Miami shouldn't have to guarantee him money when he's done something like this, because now you would view him as a risk. No different than if you got caught using drugs or any other penalty. Now that you've got a history of causing trouble, I'm less inclined to guarantee you money because you're problematic. And Xavien Howard has to accept that label now that he's problematic because he has a history of being charged with domestic violence. Now, in terms of what the Dolphins should do, the most important thing that I would be asking him if I were having to make those decisions were, this was his fiance. Like you said, Lewis, if she wanted to get him into trouble, she could lie, but I don't think she was lying. But to me, she wanted to get him in trouble because she called the police. Because to me, if he grabbed her wrist and then let her go, that sounds like a bit of an accident, but she called the police. So to me, there was a little bit more going on than just an accident.
I didn't mean to say it was an accident.
No, I'm not saying you're saying that. I'm saying in terms of I'm not too sympathetic so far for Xavien Howard, even though he didn't hit her. She still had to be scared enough to call the police.
That's what I was going to say.
The other big question I would have is, was this an isolated incident where they got into a heated argument and it got out of control, and this is an acute occurrence that's happened? If that's the case, I give Xavien Howard the benefit of the doubt to take his punishment. Get your suspension, get your contract adjusted with your guaranteed money being wiped out and having to earn that respect back, and he continues to just go on and play football. If this is a situation where she called the police because this has been a reoccurring behavior pattern for him, he's been grabbing her or pushing her.
That's a good point.
If that's the case, like if what she's saying is this keeps happening and I'm scared or whatever, now I'm in a little different mind frame, because, all right, this isn't some isolated incident that got out of control. He is being abusive towards women. That's how he operates. And then I consider just getting parting ways with him.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that's probably beating it over the head as much as we can. That's my thoughts on it. I'm in agreement with you, Lewis, over what I've read and know, which obviously isn't that much, but I wouldn't cut him over it. It's all you do by cutting him right now is you just allow another team to sign him, and it doesn't really punish Xavien Howard. It punishes the Dolphins to cut him right now. If it was just an isolated incident, and I think Flores himself likes to give people second chances. They gave Walton a second chance, and he blew that. And that's, like I said with Xavien Howard, if another player on the team that hasn't ever been in trouble gets in trouble for being out, getting in a fight at a nightclub, I'm probably just going to reprimand them and maybe fine them or something. But now if Xavien Howard does it, he's gone. He's lost his any benefit of the doubt tolerance now. That's where I would put him at in that category.
Yeah, you got to keep him on a short leash. Okay, yeah. That's basically where we can leave it, I guess, because there's really not much more we can say other than what we've already said. We just have to wait and see if any more details come out, see if there's any official word from the Dolphins on what they're going to do. So at this point, I'm taking it from the standpoint of silence is golden. So I figure if the fact they haven't said anything, the fact there doesn't seem to be any moves being made, because with Walton, it was instantaneous. Like, they didn't wait for an investigation or anything like that. They just cut him. This seems to have been swept under the carpet. So either nothing really happened and they're just not going to do anything, or they're still looking. Either way, we're kind of stuck for now.
Well, and that's what it's the final point. That's what I was touching on. Was to me, Walton, when he was signed, he had already been in a lot of trouble, and so that's where I was like, you know what, I don't care about the circumstance. If you get in any kind of trouble, I mean, if you're Mark Walton, you don't go to a nightclub now. You can't afford to get into any kind of, you know what I mean? You're in that situation now. And that's, to me, where Xavien Howard is now at. You can't afford to get in any more trouble now. Nothing. And so he needs to walk this straight and narrow. And I would have cut Mark Walton immediately, too, because of his history. You know, they gave him that second chance, and he blew that second chance by getting into trouble again. And so that's where Xavien Howard is at now.
Yeah. Hopefully everything works out. I don't want to get rid of Xavien Howard. I want him to realize that what he did was dumb, never do it again, because when he's healthy, again, he's like one of the best corners in football. And hopefully he'll be able to be part of a dynamic duo that will be in 2020 or 2021. Hopefully. But yeah, if he screws up again, then yeah, you got to go, man. I don't want you to go because you're talented, but you got to go. We can't afford to do stuff like that. You can't advocate dumb moves like that. So anyway, let's go ahead and move on to I wouldn't say cheerier topic, more like befuddling. So right after the season ended, we figured that this coaching staff was going to stick around. Everybody did a great job. Well, I mean, not everybody. I guess you could say that some units were not so good. So that explains the Coach Googs firing, the offensive line coach, Dave. I don't even know how to say his name, so I'm not even going to try. Dave DeGuli, whatever. So, you know who I'm talking about, though. So, he got removed. Safeties coach Tony Oden, I believe, also got fired. And the biggest shocker was offensive coordinator Chad O'Shea. He's gone now. And when I heard the news that Chad O'Shea was leaving, not leaving and then, he found a better opportunity. No, he got fired. I just started scratching my head thinking, why? Like, I get it. The offense wasn't exactly an offensive juggernaut. But what did you expect with journeyman Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback, no-name Patrick Laird, and Myles Gaskin, undrafted rookie? No, not undrafted. Gaskin was drafted, but Laird was undrafted. And then you get a bunch of guys that like rotate in and out of the roster as the third running back. The only unit that was really solid was wide receiver, and that was riddled with injuries. No more Preston Williams. No, Albert Wilson was like not even a good player halfway through the year because his hip was just that bad. Jakeem Grant was gone, so that left you with Allen Hurns, Devontae Parker, who again, credit where it's due, he really came on strong, but still. And then you have Mike Gesicki, who's the only tight end who ironically is making anything of a difference. And don't even get me started on the offensive line. I get it. The offense wasn't exactly a superstar lineup, but think about what they dealt with, what they accomplished with what they had. I figured Chad O'Shea not only deserved a raise, not to get fired. So before we got into who's replacing him, I want to know your thoughts on the whole Chad O'Shea getting fired thing.
Well, in general, I believe that Flores wants an experienced coach in that position that maybe even has a little head coaching experience, because honestly, I think that's what he was intending to have Caldwell do before Caldwell had health issues this season. And so a part of me thinks, Flores, this was his first year ever as a head coach, and he's still a relatively inexperienced head coach, and he has a relatively inexperienced staff when it comes to, head coaching. And so I kind of feel like he wants an older, experienced coach that's been a head coach before to maybe bounce ideas off of or bounce situations off of, that sort of thing. So I think that's part of the reason why he wanted Chan Gailey. Now, the firing of O'Shea was interesting. It could be contractual. It could be that if O'Shea left on his own terms and he lost some sort of guarantee and money and a contract or something, so therefore he had to be fired somehow. But to me, it was pretty abrupt. And so this is nothing but conspiracy theory on my part, but it's going to be interesting. Josh McDaniels, the offensive coordinator for the Patriots, is attached to several head coaching jobs right now. It sounds very likely he's going to go somewhere in the very near future to take a head coaching position. And I'm going to be curious to see if O'Shea ends up on his staff. And again, I want to stress this is nothing but conspiracy theory. This is not anything I've been told or heard or anything like that. But it just crossed my mind for what it's worth. And my thought was he was fired so abruptly after that Patriots game. It almost made me wonder if Brian Flores didn't completely trust him. And I'm not saying trust him to get things done. I'm saying, is there any potential that Chad O'Shea would communicate something to the Patriots to help them out? You would think no. You would think that would be a career ender if he were to do that. It just crossed my mind with how abruptly he was gone after that Patriots game. That there was maybe some concern there that O'Shea already knew he wanted to go take a position with McDaniels, and so maybe, just maybe, he decided that he was going to help the Patriots out a little bit, because that was a critical game for the Patriots. So anyway, that again, conspiracy, nothing, but it just crossed my mind with how it went down, and it'll feed the conspiracy a little bit to me if he ends up going to join Josh McDaniels on his staff in a comparable position to what he was on the Dolphins. But then anyway, with that being said, I do think, throwing all the conspiracy stuff aside, I do think that, I think that it had to do with the Josh Rosen, and I did actually hear that it was the primary reasoning in O'Shea being let go was a difference of opinion on Josh Rosen. I didn't have anything elaborated to me about that other than that was the reason. And so is that the management and Coach Flores did not see eye to eye with O'Shea on Josh Rosen. I would assume that would mean that O'Shea maybe thought Josh Rosen should have been playing and they didn't. But it also could mean that they felt that Josh Rosen should have been prepared to play a lot better than he was, and maybe O'Shea didn't feel like Rosen was able to pick it up. Either or. I also finally heard that O'Shea runs a very complex offensive scheme, and it was difficult for some of the players to pick it up. And so they wanted a coach that was better at implementing a little bit of a simpler scheme for the players. So those are all speculation. I do think there is some validity to the Josh Rosen because, I mean, the Dolphins did not trade a second-round pick, bring Josh Rosen in for him to sit on the bench and play poorly in limited action this year. That was not the plan. The goal was to have Josh Rosen beat out Ryan Fitzpatrick. And, obviously, Ryan Fitzpatrick played some of the best football of his career. That was part of it. But Josh Rosen, I just don't think he was able to come up to speed like they were anticipated. And I think the primary blame on that went on O'Shea. I think that was his number one responsibility, was to get Josh Rosen ready to be the starting quarterback, and it didn't happen. So I don't know how poorly that's going to reflect on Josh Rosen. We had this discussion, a couple weeks ago, Lewis, where I said, look, Ryan Fitzpatrick is nothing but an average quarterback. That's all he's ever been. And Josh Rosen, in his second full year now, was not able to beat him out. That was telling me that Josh Rosen is not the guy. And that's starting, it does to me, doesn't bode well for Josh Rosen for them to let O'Shea go and bring in Chan Gailey. Chan Gailey's got a long history with Ryan Fitzpatrick that suggests to me that Miami's going to go with Ryan Fitzpatrick and they're going to bring in a rookie to work with Gailey and Fitzpatrick. That's what it suggests to me.
I will say that, first of all, I'm going to address your conspiracy theory. First of all, if that was what O'Shea was doing, then he did a really crappy job of giving information to the Patriots because they lost anyway.
Well, let me just throw out there the way I would have seen that going down. What if O'Shea did give some information to the Patriots and Flores, for whatever reason, didn't trust him and changed the game plan and went with different offensive strategy than what they were intending to during the week in practice? and based on how the Patriots were playing defense, he suspected that there was some information passed along. But again, I'm not saying this is nothing but conspiracy. I'm just pointing out what I mean by, I understand what you're saying. Like, well, if he did, they did a poor job. Or did they? Maybe the Patriots had prepared for something that never came, and that's why Miami won.
Maybe he was a double agent. Maybe he passed along information to Bill Belichick that was false.
Again, it's timing. Do I think O'Shea did that? Probably
No,
not.
I know you don't.
But,
I know you don't.
But it's also the last game of the year. It's a critical game for the Patriots, and again, Josh McDaniels probably going to be getting a head coaching job now. That would have been known 4 weeks ago. And so if it were going to happen and O'Shea knew that he wanted to go be on his staff, that puts him in some interesting dynamics. So that was all I was saying. And then we'll see that if McDaniels does indeed take head coaching job, does O'Shea go with him? That's something I'm going to be watching for.
All right, so real quick, let's go ahead and discuss that then. We'll go into Chan Gailey in a minute, but let's say McDaniels does go somewhere and O'Shea follows him. Where would he go, do you figure? Because right now the Redskins, yeah, you're right, McDaniels, because McDaniels would have to be a head coach somewhere for O'Shea to follow him. So right now the Redskins went ahead and grabbed Ron Rivera, so that opening is gone. And then Mike McCarthy is getting looked at by the Cowboys, and also there was another one. I can't remember who it was.
The Browns are looking.
McCarthy and someone else.
I can already tell you where I think McDaniels is
going. It was Marvin Lewis. That's right. Marvin Lewis.
Right. Yeah, Marvin Lewis is not getting a job. I'm just telling you right now. Nobody's hiring him to be the head coach. I think most of that is they're fulfilling their requirement to interview black candidates. Marvin Lewis probably wouldn't appreciate that.
Technically speaking, the Rooney Rule doesn't say they have to be black. They just have to be of minority. That's
why, right, a minority.
That's so why.
I'm just saying that I feel like that's why Marvin Lewis is getting interviewed. Maybe I'm wrong. I just don't see him, and not for any reason other than I think he had a pretty long tenure to prove he can't get it done in Cincinnati.
Well, Chad. Hold on, though, Chad, because this is the thing. For Marvin Lewis, he never made it to the Super Bowl, but he consistently put together pretty good seasons. It's not like imagine if he wasn't stuck with Andy Dalton all those years. Let's say he had a better quarterback on there.
He was there. He drafted Andy Dalton.
Yeah, I know he drafted Andy Dalton.
Opportunity to switch out to different quarterback. What was it? 12 years. Any coach would be considered a failure if they couldn't make it to the Super Bowl in 12 years. That's all I'm saying. So I don't know what you would hire him thinking he's going to do different than what he did with Cincinnati. Yeah, I agree with you, Lewis. He didn't have terrible seasons, but he never had good seasons either. It was always in the middle of the range. But that being said, I don't think Marvin Lewis is getting hired as a head coach. That's all I was saying. Stranger things have happened.
So where would you say McDaniels would go then?
I think he's going to the Cowboys. I think that's pretty clear to me that that's where he's going. And obviously you saw the delay tactics going on, which I thought were curious with Jerry Jones, where where he wasn't firing Garrett, but it was everywhere that he was parting ways. But yet he wasn't firing him. Clearly he was waiting. And I think that was in two parts. I think Jerry Jones doesn't want Garrett to go to the Giants because he's in the division and he'll know the team. So I think he been trying to block that a little bit. And I think Jerry Jones actually wants McDaniels. And I don't know if you watched the news today, but boom, it came out today that now he's officially gone. Jason Garrett has officially been let go by the Cowboys. And I don't think that's any surprise because the Patriots lost. So now they can go right after Josh McDaniels. And I think that's where he's going pretty confidently to the Cowboys. So
the Cowboys would be McDaniels' landing spot for you, and then O'Shea might follow him there. Okay, so now I'll just go ahead and say this. If you're saying that Marvin Lewis is very unlikely to get a job, I'm going to say that Jason Garrett deserves one even less. So I sincerely doubt the Giants would pick him up after watching the dumpster fire that he's made in Dallas. There's no way. At best, he's a quarterback's coach.
Yeah, it's a rough year, to be honest, Lewis. And I agree with you. I wouldn't hire Jason Garrett. I'm just telling you why I think the Cowboys were holding on to him for a while because they knew they were going after McDaniels, or for sure they want to go after a coach that's in the playoffs right now, and they were just holding their time. And so rather than fire him, they were just basically blocking him from going to the Redskins. Both the two teams looking are in their division, the Redskins and the Giants were, so they didn't want to let him go right away. Because even if he's not a great coach, you would think he knows the Cowboys pretty well. He's been there for a while, so you really don't want to play against him if you don't have to. But
he knows all of Jerry Jones' blackmail.
Yeah, who knows? I'm just really, really happy to have Flores. That's all I can say right now, because it's brutal out there. And no disrespect to Ron Rivera, but he never did a whole lot in the Panthers to justify getting another job immediately.
The one Super Bowl run, I guess, that's what about it.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, and here's McCarthy getting interviewed, and it's that recycling thing going on right now of doing that. And so it's a tough scenario, because you look at, do you go get a college coach? There's a lot of people floating Urban Meyer's name out there for the Browns job. No, I agree with you. I don't think it's happening. And I honestly think Urban Meyer would struggle mightily in the NFL, because him and Nick Saban, both those coaches, are so successful because they're really good at recruiting. They get really, really good players, and they win so consistently because they have a more talented football team. You don't get to do that in the NFL. You don't get to just get the best football team. You're playing a much more balanced level of talent, and so it's a much more difficult level to win at consistently. But so if you're an organization, you basically have three choices. We've seen it all in Miami. You either go a college coach that has done really, really well in college, and you're hoping can come in and be innovative and maybe put in a whole new offensive scheme nobody's seen before. That's one direction. We've kind of went that way with a guy like Adam Gase, and we also went the Nick Saban route. Both were failures. You can hire an assistant that's been part of a successful program. That's why you see so many of the Patriots assistants being hired. We went that route with Joe Philbin. He was the offensive coordinator forever for the Packers and Aaron Rodgers.
Translation, the clipboard holder for Aaron Rodgers, but anyway.
Yep, exactly. Failed, to succeed. Or you go a coach that's coached already, but more than likely hasn't been successful for one reason or another because he's unemployed. And so you're seeing, right now, people are just recycling coaches because there just isn't many options out there. I don't think Urban Meyer even wants to come to the NFL, to be honest. I don't think Nick Saban's going to come back to the NFL. And so are you hiring, are you trying to go after somebody like Lincoln Riley? How successful would he really be in the NFL? How interested would he be? He's got a really good situation right now in Oklahoma. It's a really tough year to be trying to get a new head coach right now, in my opinion. And I feel like
Lincoln Riley was Baker Mayfield's coach, right?
Yeah, and Kyler Murray.
Okay, so, yep. I mean, if Lincoln Riley was going to go anywhere, I guess it would be Cleveland, huh?
Like I said, I don't know how interested people are in the job. So if Lincoln Riley wants to go to pro football or not, for the same reasons I just said, Lincoln Riley right now at the Oklahoma program, probably 70 to 80% of his games, he has far superior talent in the game. Those are much easier games to win than coming to the NFL, where you play 16 games where you don't have superior talent all the time. He might be real happy where he's at. So I haven't heard any reports where Lincoln Riley's trying to go to the NFL at all. So it's kind of like quarterbacks, maybe even harder to get a good coach. I mean, you look at John Harbaugh, Bill Belichick, Sean Payton. Those guys consistently, Mike Tomlin, consistently put their teams in the playoffs, and that is hard to get, really hard to get. And the really good coaches just aren't freed up right now. There is no Andy Reid out there right now that's available, and the closest things to those are Ron Rivera and Mike McCarthy, and those are hardly coaches that have consistently won and won and won. So it's going to be a rough sledding for some of these teams, I think, for who they're going to take for coaches.
I don't doubt it. So now we actually get into the whole Chan Gailey discussion. So from what we know of Chan Gailey's past, and even when Chan Gailey's had a Dolphins tenure before, so it's not like he's never been here. But from what we know of Chan Gailey and how he functions, he's very big into the spread offense. He likes to make 4 wide receivers go out there. He likes to use tight ends as wide receiver weapons, which works well for Mike Gesicki, so that's a good thing. Running backs, definitely not going to be a power running game from what we know of Chan Gailey. Who knows, maybe with all these years that he spent retired, he came out of retirement to ask for Brian Flores, maybe he'd realize that, maybe there's something we need to fix here about my offense. I don't know. I don't know how receptive he is to changing the way he does things. I don't even know yet if we're going to need to change things. The thing about this situation that I don't like, and I know for sure that I don't like, is this concept of simplifying the offense because players, quote-unquote, weren't getting it. And now, this is the thing that confuses me. Because that was the excuse we heard with Adam Gase. Is that his scheme was so complex, so mind-boggling that nobody could understand what he was doing. His genius was just too much to grasp. You could not comprehend it. Okay, so are we saying Chad O'Shea did the same thing? But if that's the case, then I would expect a bazillion penalties like Adam Gase had. Because penalties are usually a result of poor execution and not knowing what you're doing. The Dolphins had a pretty good grasp, I think, of what they were doing. Fitzpatrick ran that offense like a pro. The wide receivers were where they needed to be most of the time. Most of the miscommunications only came on the Jakeem Grant side of things. But that's the thing about it that I don't get. It's like, why do we need to simplify an offense that was already working? It didn't look like they were struggling at all, and that's why I'm wondering, like, why do they need to simplify anything? Everything looks to be working pretty well.
Well, we don't really know how the offensive plays get installed or not installed, and so it could easily be a practice thing where Chad O'Shea was wanting to run certain game plans, and they had to keep pulling them because they just didn't feel comfortable in practice at how they were being executed. I mean, obviously, I'm nowhere near an NFL coach, but I've done a fair amount of coaching, and that's where you make your judgment calls. Is when you're doing scrimmages in practice, you're looking to see how the team's executed, and if you're seeing lots of penalties or lots of execution errors, a lot of times you just say we're not going to be able to run that in the game. They screw it up too often. And so it could have been they were seeing that in practice as well. It could have been feedback from Ryan Fitzpatrick. You know, he's very experienced, probably way more experienced than O'Shea when it comes to running offenses. And I don't know. I really don't. In my honest opinion, Lewis, I threw the conspiracy feather. My honest opinion is that it is true that I think Josh Rosen did not develop like the Brian Flores was anticipating him to develop. And I think he put that squarely on O'Shea's shoulders. And I don't think Brian Flores messes around. He's not here to make friends. He's not here to do this Adam Gase stuff of bringing in family members and bringing in my old buddies. Your unit does well, you get to stay. Your unit struggles, you're gone. That's his mentality, and we've seen that. I was commenting with somebody just last week on Twitter about, I don't ever remember a first-year head coach. He fired his offensive line coach before the season even got going. Wasn't that like the first day of training camp?
Oh, yeah. Who was that again?
I can't remember, but like they struggled like the first 2 days in practice at offensive line. He was gone. Like they didn't have him where they wanted him. And so the offensive line coach again this year, I even without talent, he obviously was expecting that offensive line to play better than it did. So the offensive line coach is gone. And I think that's really not a bad thing because I think it gives Brian Flores a little bit more respect from his players because we've seen these coaching staffs come in. We've seen Joe Philbin, Sherman. I was trying to remember the offensive coordinator he had that he was really forced to fire. Wasn't that his name? Who was that offensive coordinator?
It was Mike Sherman. Mike Sherman.
Go. He was forced to fire him, but as players, if your offensive game strategy is failing, it's tough when you're like, we're going to cut a player and we're going to get a guy that can get it right. It's a little refreshing to see your head coach say, no, we're going to fire a coach because he can't get the players I have to succeed. Because it goes two ways. Is your coach doing a good job or is your player not doing a good job? So Brian Flores, at the very least, has made it very clear that everybody is accountable. It's not just the players and the coaches are untouchable. He's setting a precedent that you have got to get it done if you're going to be a coach on this team. In terms of Chan Gailey, it's an interesting pick because I don't think anybody saw it from it. I realize they have a background, and I'm still sticking with what I said earlier. I think the primary reason he wants Chan Gailey is he wants a guy that has some experience at being a head coach because he's not. And I kind of like that aspect of it. That's Brian Flores maybe saying, look, I am not experienced enough to run the offense on this football team. I'm also a young head coach without a lot of head coaching experience. I want a seasoned guy who has been a head coach and has installed offenses. And you're getting Chan Gailey, who's one of the innovators of the spread offense, and he's been around a lot of different players and a lot of different teams. And I really think this is his replacement for Jim Caldwell. I think it's him wanting that experienced member on the coaching staff more than him really wanting Chan Gailey's spread offense. I think it's more about the experience in general.
Okay, so I just made a quick check to see when he was actually head coach. So apparently he's been the head coach for the Dallas Cowboys and the Buffalo Bills. Chan Gailey's a little before my time, Chad. Just a little bit. So I had to look this guy up. I was like, who is he again? Because I wasn't even that into football. When was he with the Dolphins? Back in 2000, not even in the 10s.
Back when they still made the playoffs.
Yeah. No, wasn't he with Jay Fiedler? Jay Fiedler.
That might have been around that time.
Yeah, so it's so. I was not even I wasn't even a teenager yet. So that's a little bit before my time. So, but yeah.
So, I don't know if it means spread offense or not. I have to anticipate you're going to see more spread offense out of the Dolphins. And obviously they're bringing in a guy who was a major innovator of the spread offense, but also looking at their personnel moves. What position has Miami been locking up this year?
Wide receivers.
So they obviously are wanting some experienced wide receivers going into next year, and I think they signed 3. They extended Jakeem Grant. They extended Devontae Parker.
Grant, Parker,
Hearns.
and Allen Hurns. Yes.
Yep. And then they'll have Preston Williams coming back, who will have a long contract yet in front of him. So it looks like Miami's wanting receivers for sure right away, and they know that. And so it would appear to me they're intending to be continuing to throw the football again next year. So that's what I take away from it.
Yeah, all right. Okay, but so you said he's the replacement for Jim Caldwell. I'm still hoping that Caldwell comes back because I'm sure that he's after his health issues have subsided or even if they have subsided, we don't know yet. We haven't heard from Jim Caldwell ever since we heard that he was going to be a consultant. So but
yeah, I'm guessing, in my opinion, Lewis, this means he's not. I think that's why Chan Gailey was hired. Because look, Miami, it's either Josh Rosen or it's a rookie. This team is not saying we are going to bank on Ryan Fitzpatrick being our quarterback the next 3 or 4 years. That is not the direction they're going.
Oh, definitely not. No way. Yeah.
So they need to bring in a young quarterback, whether it's Rosen or whether they draft one or both. I think this is Brian Flores saying, look, I don't have the expertise needed to develop a young quarterback. And I think he's saying Chad O'Shea does not have the expertise needed to develop a young quarterback.
He was a wide receiver coach anyway, so right. I would imagine not.
Right, and the whole reason he was where he was Jim Caldwell. He had health issues. But Caldwell, the whole purpose of him being on this thing was to help Flores with head coaching decisions and also to develop the quarterback. And so I still think that's the primary purpose in Chan Gailey coming in is to help Brian Flores with some of the head coaching challenges as well as develop a young quarterback. And I mean, you want a guy who has Chan Gailey has a lot of experience working with young quarterbacks in the spread offense. So he should be a pretty good mentor. I can't think of a much better situation because 2 of the challenges you get with young quarterbacks are, one, do you have a coach that has experience helping a young quarterback improve, because you can't put a rookie on the field and expect them to do the things Tom Brady does. Tom Brady's been in the league for 20 years, and what Tom Brady was doing in year 10 is a lot different than what Tom Brady was doing in year 2. And you need a coach that can help a quarterback be successful in year 2 and also help him start to progress, as the seasons go up. And that takes a lot of experience and expertise out of a coach that knows what he's doing. And you're getting that, I believe, with Chan Gailey. And you have Ryan Fitzpatrick in there. And that's another real difficulty with a young quarterback is if you bring in a veteran a lot of veterans in this league are not interested in helping a young guy. They may give the lip service, but they want the starting. Their goal is to be the starting quarterback. And so how much do they really want to help the guy who's being groomed to take their place?
Yeah, I can't. I still remember laughing when I heard Eli Manning say that, yeah, being a backup was not fun. I don't want to do that again.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. But I think with Ryan Fitzpatrick, I really don't think he cares. I think he's completely fine with trying to help a quarterback, and he'll gladly sit there and hold the clipboard and run a few plays here and there. And
I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will. But you know what, Chad? I also think he really wants to. Like, just watching him play this year, this guy just loves playing. Seriously.
Well, everybody wants to play. Don't get me wrong, Lewis. But I think in terms of a guy to pair with a young quarterback, I don't think you can do much better than Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Agreed.
And so I feel pretty good that, whoever it is, if we draft a rookie or if we put a lot of more time into Rosen, we have a much better staff going into next year now with Fitzpatrick and Chan Gailey together, who know each other really well already. And you kind of want that. You want stability for a young quarterback. You don't want a quarterback who's not getting along with his offensive coordinator or they have disagreements on how to do things. You want an offensive coordinator and a quarterback who are very in tune and both know exactly what they're trying to implement. So the young quarterback then has that stability to learn in. It's the last thing you want to do is have a quarterback offensive coordinator odds, throwing a rookie in there, being told different things, and it can spiral in a hurry. And you've seen that happen all over the place where a quarterback's just getting put in because he was the number one pick, but he's nowhere near ready, and it just ends up being a disaster. And I feel pretty good about the move in terms of the quarterback. In terms of the offense, I really don't know what to make of it, Lewis. I personally don't see Brian Flores going to spread-only offense. I think you're going to see components of the spread get installed, but I think they'll keep Chandler Cox, and I still think they'll keep that continually switching, like from double tight to spread offense.
That was the bizarre thing, Chad. Sorry to cut you off again, but it's like from what I've most of what I've heard from the offense came from Chris Kaufman over on the 5 Reasons Network, and so bizarrely enough, in spite of the emphasis on wide receivers, apparently Chan Gailey has value for the fullback position. So I'm sure that Chandler Cox is finally going to get his shot, as strange as it seems, but I mean, I just don't foresee a power running game coming into play here. That's the only thing.
There was absolutely no chance to even attempt it this last year because we just don't have the people up front.
Yeah, so, there's no way.
I mean, that's why Ryan Fitzpatrick, when you have a 37-year-old quarterback lead the league in rushing, it's because you can't run at all, and he's just scrambling for his life. So he picks up yards running. It'll be different this year with all the cap space. I really think we'll bring in a few veteran offensive linemen, and then we'll pick up a few more in the draft. So we should see a drastic improvement in the level of talent anyway on our offensive line, which I would hope means we can at least have some semblance of a running game when that happens. So we'll have to see.
Yep. So, okay. So you brought up something a little earlier during your discussion that made me think. So, considering what kind of an offense we're supposedly going to, like you said, we're going to install bits and pieces of it, and the first overall picks don't really, come into play. Like you said, the first overall picks get thrown in there, and they're not really actually all that good. Like, I can think already Jameis Winston crashed and burned pretty much. Baker Mayfield's definitely not living up to the hype. And now, I just want to touch on this real quick because could you imagine? And this is coming out of left field, but also this is more discussion about the whole coaching situation and what we've actually witnessed all season long. Could you imagine if the Dolphins went through with this whole tanking thing, went ahead and went 0-16, secured the first overall pick? Could you imagine if the one guy that everybody was locked in on the whole time, we did all that, and then he went back to school? Because that's what we're hearing right now, is that things seem to be pushing towards the way that Tua's going to go back to Alabama. So, could you imagine the backlash that would have happened if the Miami Dolphins had secured the first overall pick to get their quarterback, and their quarterback wasn't available to be selected?
Yeah. Nothing suggests to me Miami's. That was a media fabricated thing. Uh,
I don't know, man. But that was
Miami never has been tanking, but yeah, I
yeah.
understand
Let
what
me
you're
say,
saying.
yeah. It's
Is
like
people freak out? 'Cause,
everybody
you're talking
wanted him.
about Tua, and Tua's maybe talking about going back to school. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people are in love with getting him. I don't know that he's even on the Dolphins' radar anymore because of the injury background. We'll have to see, but I just don't know that that's the case. That's what they're going to be looking at. Um, if they are, it might disappoint a lot of people. I don't know that Miami would use their fifth overall pick on Tua. I could see that maybe using their second or third first round pick, maybe in the teens or into the 20s, putting him on the roster because obviously he has a lot of upside, but this is not a player that you can expect to probably play next year, in my opinion. I don't
Right.
think Tua is going to play.
And
Miami has that luxury with Rosen and Fitzpatrick. They could bring Tua in and just let him sit and learn. I don't know that they're willing to give up the fifth overall pick in the draft for a guy to just sit and learn for a year, especially if you go into next year, you get another good crop of quarterbacks. Yeah, the Clemson quarterback, he's rated really high.
Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, and
Trevor
if he
Lawrence,
does go back to school, then probably Tua again.
Yeah, or Tua coming back. So I don't think Miami's too worried about that. A lot of people are all focused on Tua's decision.
Oh, I'm sure Miami's not worried, but this is what I wanted to bring it up for, is that this is why tanking doesn't work. Okay?
No, I remember having those conversations where I said that several times to people after me. I'm like, you have no guarantee. He's a junior. You have no guarantee he's even going to be eligible in the draft next year. You have no idea if he's going to have a severe injury, what happened, or if he'll have a really bad year. All those things to tank for a specific player. What Miami did is this was a real rebuild. You always hear people talk about rebuild, and teams always try to do a little bit of a rebuild, but they never really do it because nobody's willing to go into a season knowing that you don't have much of a chance to compete for a playoff spot. And I think, fortunately, Miami realized they really didn't have much of a chance with the team they had. That if they continued more of the same, try to free up some cap space by restructuring contracts and kick the bucket down the road so you can pick up a high dollar free agent or two and just try to get a little bit better. And instead, they blew it up. As much as you ever seen a team get blown up, they cleaned house, and now they're going to be completely started over with new players. And I only, even if Tua goes into the draft, obviously I was making the point he isn't going to play for a year anyway. I think there's only two real quarterbacks in this draft right now that I think have potential of being able to play in the NFL on opening day, and that'd probably be Herbert from Oregon and Burrow from LSU. I don't think any of the other quarterbacks are NFL ready. There's some talented, like Jordan Love's very talented, but I've watched him play. I don't think he's anywhere near ready to play in the NFL level. He looks like to me he would be a guy who needs to hold a clipboard for a year, maybe get worked in a few plays here or there, but not a guy that you can bring in and start right away.
He's a slower Josh Allen.
Honestly, I know he's not a popular name, and I'm not comparing him to the individual. His game reminds me a lot more of a Colin Kaepernick, Jordan Love's. He's just pretty raw. A lot of his passes are vertical passes down the field. He's kind of got I don't really like his release point. He's kind of got a lower, a little bit between sidearm and over the top release point. So I'm not super high on Jordan Love. I see the talent. He does have good arm strength. He's very mobile, but to me he looks like a project, which is fine. I don't have any problem picking him up, but you don't use a top first round pick on the guy. The guy's not ready at all. I think the two quarterbacks in this draft are going to be Burrow and Herbert, and I think Tua will go in the first round if he declares, but it's going to be a team that's in a position to just let him sit for a year. And there's only a limited number of teams. I don't think Miami's going to have any trouble getting Tua if they really want him, because you got to be a team like the Chargers or maybe the Patriots if Tom Brady comes back. You got to be a team that are the Saints, a team that's got an established starting quarterback that you feel really comfortable with going into the year and starting all year to put him behind. Otherwise, there just aren't many teams, I should say, that have a head coach and a general manager in a position where they can afford to burn a high first round pick for a player that's not going to help at all this year, because there's probably going to be 10 guys on the hot seat going into next season that know that they can't afford to not have a successful season. And it doesn't do them any good to draft a guy like Tua when they can't afford to not have a successful season. They need to have that number one pick contribute immediately to help them keep their jobs. So that for that reason, I don't think the Tua to Miami is going to be. I honestly predict Tua probably going into the teens because of that, just because nobody wants to take that risk of having a guy that's going to sit for a year and that still may not ever be able healthy enough to play the game. It's a huge risk to pick, and Miami's just one of those teams right now that has the luxury to get him if they want to, because they have extra number one picks. So like I said earlier, Lewis, I don't think they're that concerned about it right now.
Yeah. So, but yeah, this is why tanking doesn't work, ladies and gentlemen. So don't ever get your loser's mentality up again. Like, be happy we found a coach. Be happy he did what he did. Don't try to do the Cleveland Browns strategy, because as we've already witnessed now, it doesn't work. Don't.
I'm telling you, it was, you can call it tanking because we cleaned house, but I only saw one move we made that you could question, and that's the Minka. And Minka wanted out. Make no mistake, Minka asked to be traded. So they said, you don't want to be here, we'll get rid of you. And so right now, we've got, I think it's the 18th overall pick for Minka Fitzpatrick, who ended up being a Pro Bowl safety. So that's a win for the Steelers right now.
And you know what? Let's not act like that just because Minka... Let's not act like because Minka balled out this year that all of a sudden the Dolphins lost the trade, okay? Because we don't know what the Dolphins are going to get with that 18th pick. We really don't. Because there was actually during the game with the Eagles and the Seahawks, they were actually discussing the whole DK Metcalf thing. Like, he was a very raw player, a very talented player, but raw. As if I'm not mistaken, he didn't go until the second round. He was supposed to be a first-round prospect. We don't know what the Dolphins are going to do with that pick, so let's not immediately say. Let's just. All I'm saying is let's not immediately say that the Dolphins are going to get their value back on that pick. We don't know that yet.
You can, if you're looking chronologically how it plays out. Sure, I'm just making the point. If you have the 18th overall pick in the draft, and you have a 23 or whatever he is, old Pro Bowl safety, you will gladly trade an 18th overall pick for a young Pro Bowl safety. So
sure.
But it's a good trade for the Steelers. But I'm just pointing that one out. That's the only one. It's not a terrible trade for the reasons you just said, Lewis. We still have the 18th overall pick in the draft, which is a very valuable pick and can turn into a very good player. So it's not like it's a terrible trade for the Dolphins. I'm just saying that's one where you could say the Steelers got it, maybe the better situation out of it as of right now.
We'll see.
The other ones, though, Robert Quinn, he did all right. Was he a game changer for Dallas? Obviously not.
No, he kind of was. I think he was their leading sack leader.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, we got to pick for him. What would he have done that made our season that much different? It was, to me, clearly the right move to let him go and get a draft pick. Laremy Tunsil had like 14. Part of the reason we were leading the league in penalties clearly is Laremy Tunsil. He's a false start machine, and he
did it with the Texans too.
He nearly blew the game for him. It wasn't Laremy Tunsil dominating in that game that allowed them to sneak out of the win. It was Deshaun Watson magically breaking 2 tackles and completing a pass. It wasn't like he stood back there with super protection. And so I'm feeling like, wow. Laremy Tunsil had, I think they said on TV, 14 false starts this year. 14. That's 14 penalties. And we got 2 number 1 picks for this guy. To me, that's a wow.
Yeah.
This is the direction we want. We don't want penalties. We want consistent players. So, to me, that's a great move. Kenyon Drake, yeah, he's did well for the Cardinals, but
he'll be a 5th rounder, I think.
Yeah, but I just don't think we were going to keep him on the team next year regardless. I just don't think
either.
he wanted to be here. So getting something out of him. So all these moves we've made, I don't feel like it was a rebuild year, but I feel really good about all the moves we made that had really good value to them right now. And so I think that's worth pointing out, because a lot of people look at our team and we tank? We had 5 wins with our team. We've got all these picks now, and I look around the league. Look at the other teams, like the Browns and the Bengals and the Chargers. They don't have near the capital we have in draft picks or cap space to improve their teams right now. They're like what we were 2 or 3 years ago. They're an average team that's trying to get to be a 10-6 team when they're an 8-8 team.
Yeah.
I feel a lot better where we're at.
I feel very great about it too. But we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show with one last little discussion that I want to have. And we're just going to go ahead and celebrate a little longer because I said we were going to talk about it, and we are. So, Chad Ronnebaum, my friend, is this the end of the Patriots dynasty at last?
No, I don't think it's the end.
Chad, that's not the answer I wanted to hear, man. Come on.
I guess in terms of depending on how you define the dynasty, I think this might be the end of Tom Brady, if you're asking that. But I think that if Bill Belichick is still there, the Patriots are still going to be a very competitive football team. So it's not like this is a bad football team. You know, they have a lot of good young players still on the defense. They need some stuff. You know, obviously they need some help on the offensive line. They need some help with the wide receivers. But I do think, everybody's reporting right now. What is Tom Brady going to do? What is Tom Brady going to do? Because he's actually a free agent now. He can do whatever he wants. He can retire. He can return to the Patriots. He can go to a new football team. But one thing people aren't talking about that it's not going to be public, but I think may be the case is I don't know if the Patriots want Tom Brady back. You know, as crazy as that sounds, I don't know if that's the case. You know, he's 42. He had 2 pick sixes in the last 2 games. To me, he doesn't look like he's the same Tom Brady that we've seen throughout the years. And they've got a young quarterback who's showing promise right now. And so is it in the best interest of the Patriots to bring Tom Brady back right now? Is that what they're going to do? And a lot of that would depend on what he wants for a contract. But my gut feeling right now is with everything that's been going on is Tom Brady is leaving New England. And also I think McDaniels is going to go as well. So his offensive coordinator is going to go. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But I do think we may have seen the last game for Tom Brady in a Patriots uniform.
Okay, let me rephrase the question, Chad. Do you think that the end of the AFC East being a Patriot shoe-in are gone?
Yeah, I do.
Thank you. Okay, that's close enough for me.
I think Belichick is probably starting to consider what he wants to do because as good of a coach as he's been, he's starting to see these coaches that were all his guys. And there's, Brian Flores knocked him out of the first round bye, beating him in Foxborough. And what happens the next week? Mike Vrabel comes in and beats him again. And it's getting harder and harder and harder right now. And so you're looking at whether Tom Brady stays or not. Tom Brady isn't what Tom Brady was 5 years ago. He doesn't have as good a physical ability as he used to. And he's almost certainly going to continue to decline. He's going to be 43. These little injuries become, more nagging as you get older. And I don't know that does Bill Belichick want to develop a new quarterback right now. What does he have left to prove for Bill Belichick? And it's gotten a lot harder. And so now you've got to face Flores twice a year, who I think has a pretty good grasp on the Patriots. He's going to be retooling this Dolphins team to be a lot tougher next year. Buffalo is definitely gotten better. Buffalo is not a slouch of a football team anymore. And so the division's getting a lot better. 2 years ago, this division was a cakewalk for the Patriots. And, Miami had a better record the last 5 games than the Patriots this year. And so I think Belichick and Brady both realize that it's going to be a lot more difficult to get a first round bye next year. And I don't know that the Patriots can contend for a Super Bowl next year without that. And so it may be time. It really might be, Louis.
Well, I'll take it because you know what? I think you, me, and the rest of every Dolphins fandom out there is sick and tired of seeing Tom Brady and Bill Belichick winning the AFC East like it's no big deal. So even if Belichick sticks around, I am going to go ahead and say, yes, the dynasty is over. No more easy divisional wins for these guys. Seriously, it's time for that to stop.
I will say this: that is going to be the worst two jobs in football: the head coach of the Patriots and the quarterback of the Patriots in the coming years now, because it's unprecedented right now. I mean, I was chuckling, and maybe you saw this going around on Twitter where a fan was burning his Brady jersey.
Oh yeah, the
And
pressure is going to be
I'm
insane.
like, wow, they don't make a first round bye in a championship game or a Super Bowl, and immediately they have a fan turning. They're there, which obviously that's isolated.
They are
but
spoiled over the past 2 decades. They're spoiled.
Well, you think about that. There are a lot of people, like practically your age, Lewis, that have never known the Patriots to not always be winning. Always be winning. And you've got from beat writers to announcers, everything surrounding them, they are all used to always winning football games and always being a Super Bowl caliber team. And you bring in a new coach and a new quarterback, can you imagine what the fans and the media and the owner, or what they're all going to be like if you have like a 6-11 team, or you know what I mean, or 6-10, I mean a 6-10 team, or an 8-8 team?
Can you imagine what Jimmy Johnson felt like when he had to come in and beat Don Shula? Well, no, because that's not even a fair comparison either, because Jimmy Johnson was a Super Bowl coach.
He'd already won national titles and Super Bowls, and he was a legend in Miami. That's way better.
Yeah.
He
seriously,
already had that. I'm saying anybody, because the expectation is going to be so unrealistic now for New England for a long time, because everybody affiliated with that team in all the different capacities doesn't really understand what it's like to be like everybody else. I mean, even
welcome back to the mortal realm.
It absolutely, even successful teams like the Ravens and Steelers that have won consistently, they have, up in, like the Steelers just went 8-8 or whatever this year, and wasn't a great year for them, but they go through that too. And the Patriots just have not. This was the first time since 2009 that they had the first round bye. It's just unbelievable to think about that, like how hard it is to make the playoffs. And it had been 10 years since the Patriots didn't already win the first round bye. And so you got to take your hats off to the unbelievable dynasty that they have had in place, whether they have a year or two left or not, but that's coming. And like I said, I don't think anybody wants to touch that job. I think Josh McDaniels knows I need to get the hell out of town and go take a job somewhere else, because I don't want the head coaching job here, because it's going to be brutal. And I think that Boston market's is going to be worse than the New York market when it comes to how vicious like the fans and the media are if you're not winning. That's going to be a rough job for somebody.
Yeah, man. All I'm going to say is just I can't wait for the Dolphins to get back to the top. And let me tell you something. Bill Belichick, it took 10 years for them to not be the first round bye. Just I can't, forgive me for saying this, but I can't wait to watch Boston implode on itself. I really can't. just to watch everybody rip their faces off trying to figure out why they aren't elite anymore.
Yeah, it's going to be, like I said, it wouldn't shock me if you see them go through a span of like a decade of every 2 years firing a coach, because trying to live up to what Belichick and Brady did. Yeah, that's. You think it's tough to live up for guys to live up to Shula and Marino. I mean, yeah, those were a great coach and a great quarterback, but I mean, 6 Super Bowls, and it's not just the 6 Super Bowls. Like I said, it was 10 years of always having to bye. It's an expectation now. That is the expectation of Boston right now, and
ignoring the asterisks, of course.
Yeah,
because their little cheating ways. How many times they got caught now? 4 or 5.
Yeah, and they're gonna get. I'm reading they're gonna get punished again, for cheating. Which again, that makes me wonder. Like, maybe Brady is ready to just, that's a big question. Does Brady really want to end his career with the Patriots or not? You would assume he would, but maybe he's interested in playing another year or two somewhere else.
He's definitely not gonna retire, Chad. There's no way. This guy, the way he went out, the way he competes. I would be shocked if he decides, no, I'm done, because he does not want his last NFL throw to be a pick 6 in the playoffs. No way. No way.
No. I agree. What he wants and what reality is, though, are suddenly becoming two different things. I mean, I understand. Tom Brady says, "I want to play until I'm 45," but I don't know that his body is going to allow him to play until he's 45. And so we'll see. But wherever you at, that's the change that people are going to have to understand, and that's why I'm wondering if the Patriots really want him back. Because is Tom Brady a good quarterback? Yeah, he's still a good quarterback. I'm not saying he's not, but this isn't like the top quarterback in the league right now. I think you're starting to see that change. Drew Brees just lost today, and he wasn't like this unbelievable quarterback. I saw an unbelievable quarterback yesterday, and what you saw it too, Lewis. Deshaun Watson, unbelievable performance. Patrick Mahomes. These teams, like the Patriots, they're going to be starting to realize, like, we may need to get a guy like that if we're going to stay competitive. And is 43-year-old Tom Brady going to be able to lead us to a Super Bowl with where we're at? And I just don't know.
No, the answer is no, and it's because pocket passing is dead. Seriously. Like, they had to drag Dante Scarnecchia kicking and screaming out of retirement just to fix the offensive line so Brady could have a pocket again. Pocket passing is pretty much, like, extinct. Brady is like the last remnant of a dying age.
Well, yeah, I mean, he still can read defenses. It isn't like his arm is completely done, but he's no longer mobile.
The style of play is outdated.
It's becoming hard to win without a mobile quarterback, and it's the teams that are starting to become the teams that are hard to stop are the teams that are figuring out how to be able to run your quarterback and allow him to throw as well. And the team to beat right now is the Baltimore Ravens, and it's Lamar Jackson. And that's hard to stop. It's really hard to stop. And, that made me wonder with Miami, like, they're going to a spread offensive guy. To run a spread offense, that's a quarterback that you typically need to be somewhat mobile to do that. Not something you would probably have Tom Brady do all the time. Not that Tom Brady can't run some spread offense, but he's not geared to do it all the time. He can run some of it here and there, but you're absolutely right, Lewis. The same things, you're starting to hear those whispers in San Diego. Like, I don't know that we can win with Phillip Rivers, as good of a career as he's had. He's just not mobile at all. And so the defenses are able to kind of hone in knowing that this quarterback isn't going to take off and run. That changes a defense a ton. If you don't have to worry about it, and it's not, everybody wants Lamar Jackson, but if you can't at least be a threat to take off and run, at least be a Ryan Fitzpatrick level of being able to run, defenses really get an advantage over you. And that's where the Patriots are at with Tom Brady right now, and kind of where I was making that point. They're at that crossroads right now of, do we start to develop this new quarterback or not? Because this was his second year, right? The Patriots backup.
Which one? Brian Hoyer?
No. They're backup. The Stidham. What is his name? The guy from Auburn.
Oh, Jarrett Stidham. Yes. Okay.
Stidham. This was his second year, I want to say, in the league, and so he'll be going into his third year. And so, as the Patriots, you got to start to think about, we need to know if this is our quarterback of the future or not, because you don't want to be trying to figure out if he's your quarterback of the future in year 4 or 5 when you immediately put him in there. Let's say he shows some progress, but now you got to pay him a huge contract and guarantee a bunch of money to him before you know for sure. That's a tough situation, and it might be a point right now where they need to get him in there and start to get a feel for it. And as well as I do, if Tom Brady is on that team, Tom Brady or Robert Kraft will never stand for Tom Brady not starting. Tom Brady is not going to hold a clipboard and be a mentor for a young quarterback. That's just not going to happen. He'll retire.
No way in hell. No. Brady will retire before he becomes a backup. Seriously.
Right. And so if it's starting to get close on who you should start, it might be a lot easier for the Patriots to say, hey, why don't Brady go off with wherever McDaniel goes or wherever he wants to go try to compete for a title, and we'll get our young guy in there and we'll start that direction right now. Because if I'm the owner or people making decisions for the Patriots, I kind of want my young quarterback to be with Belichick. I don't really want him to be with a first-year head coach. I mean, that's the recipe for disaster, to put in a rookie head coach or a first-year head coach at the least with a first-year quarterback. There's so much inexperienced variables in there. If I'm going to start a rookie quarterback, I would much rather have him with a guy like Belichick than a young coach. But I don't know. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun offseason. We've got all these toys to play with for assets right now and picks and money, and the Patriots got a lot of drama to deal with what they're going to do. And
so we can enjoy our offseason and watch the rest of the teams crash and burn. It's going to be very fun, I think. So
yeah, we went through a long season to be here. So
yeah, it's like we paid our dues. It's our turn now. Thank you.
Yep. Absolutely.
Alrighty, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Great show. We'll have more for you next week. So thank you all for joining us for another episode of Dolphins Brawl as part of the Brawl Network. So until then, we'll see you all next time.